Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, thanks for joining me. I'm Katie and today it's SCRAWLRBOX. I'm going to be unboxing, swatching and creating with July 2020's box. So let's get into it, shall we? Just before we move on, the featured artist of this month's box is Katarzyna Kamiak. I might have pronounced that wrong, I'm so sorry, but be sure to check out her social media. We also have a SCRAWLRBOX magazine, a little menu card if you would, a sticker, and of course the all-important ingredients. The surface we have to work on is a Clairefontaine cold press A5 watercolour pad, which is 300 GSM, and it's made of pure cellulose. That's another one, but it's a little different than the Upcrate one, so we're good. The pencils we have this month are the Deviant water-soluble sketching pencils, and they are in 4B and 8B. We also have a paintbrush included in a size 10, and it's a SCRAWLRBOX own flat brush. And we have Deviant liquid pencil tubes, which are what are on the screen right now. These, I'm going to say, are like the Deviant Graphitint, but they come in tubes, so there's no reactivating the pan. I decided to get the old microscope out on these while they were mixing in the palette, just to give you guys an idea of those chunks of graphite in there mixed with the pigments. Now, speaking of pigments, they come in three colours. We have a yellow, a blue and a grey. And the yellow kind of looks greenish, the blue looks blue, and the grey, it kind of just looks like the Deviant sketching pencils we got, which I thought was a bit pointless, but never mind. Just on screen now is it washing over some paper, and you can see it sitting into the weave of the paper, as you will. The eraser included this month is the Koh&Or combined eraser, and it's two-part. You've got one end for the pencil and the other end for pen, and if I be honest, I thought this was a little bit too harsh for the watercolour paper. It did lift the graphite off and leave the colour behind, but I don't like how it left the paper, if that makes sense. Now, this month's prompt is Mother Nature. So following on from having an Art Nouveau style for the Upcrate box, I thought I would do that for the SCRAWLRBOX and decided to design a motif in an Art Nouveau style with Mother Nature, of course. I did draw this off screen because it's just a lot easier for me to produce a better drawing, and I just penciled it out, and then we're going in there with the good stuff on screen now. So before we fully go into things, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I've just recently hit 700 subscribers and it still feels surreal. It felt surreal when I had my first 100, and I just want to say thank you so much. It does mean a lot to me that you enjoy my channel and you've subscribed and you support it, and I can't believe that my little channel's growing, so thank you so much, everyone. You are a bit of a driving force for me to do these pictures. It keeps me motivated and it keeps my ideas fresh for myself as an artist, so thank you. It really does mean a lot. Now let's get back onto the box, shall we, and the painting. So after outlining everything in the Deviant pencil, and I used the 8B on the external outline and used a wet paintbrush to activate it, I also decided to use that grey liquid pencil as well, and again, if I be honest, it didn't make that much difference, so I don't really use it all that much for the rest of this painting. I do rely on the pencils a bit more, and that's purely down to accuracy. I also used one of my own paintbrushes. Well, it was from last month's SCRAWLRBOX, so I guess it still counts, and that's because for me personally, a flat brush on an A5 piece of paper when I'm doing something this intricate, it's not the right brush, and I just don't want to use it and not create a piece that I'll be happy with. I'll definitely use this brush for other projects, but for this particular one and this design I had in mind, it wasn't going to happen, so I didn't. I'm sorry. The design itself, as I've mentioned, is in an Art Nouveau style, and we have our character in the middle, who is obviously Mother Nature, and I thought I would add elements of nature around her with this frame, this ornate frame. So we have the sun and the moon at the top because I guess they always govern everything, and then we have various flora and fauna on here. So we have ivy leaves intertwined with the border, as well as birds, mammals, reptiles, fish and insects. I thought I'd include a bit of everything in there. It was really interesting doing this because I kind of did it all in grayscale first, just the main outlines and everything, and it did hit a stage where I think I would have been quite happy if I'd just kept it in black and white actually, and that's not a reflection on the materials. I just really liked the aesthetic it created. It's not very often I've at least put a video out of doing something in a monotone, and it was actually quite a nice eye-opener really to see how beautiful black and white can be on a painting. Now again, obviously referring back to Upcrate, there was a part of me that really needed to use masking fluid, or at least I thought that, and then I thought, well actually those pencils are really good for just getting up to the edge of something where I want a tight detail and I don't want the fluidity of the paint to interfere or give an edge that I wouldn't be happy with. And I know I can lift this off with an eraser, but I wanted to see how much I could do without depending on that too much. I mixed the character's hair colour using the yellow and the blue to create this very muted green colour. It's very strange actually. Again, I'm going to keep comparing them to the Graphitint, but the colours are very, very subtle in this, and again, I don't know if that's because they're in a tube and maybe I should have mushed them around a little bit, but it was very, very subtle. Not in a bad way, but you really, really had to work it to get it going. After putting a wash of that colour down though, I do go in there a little bit more with a more concentrated version of it, and I do also add a few flecks of the neat blue and the neat yellow, and when I say neat, I just haven't mixed it with any other colours. I do dilute it a little bit. Now, I was getting to a stage with this where I did just want colour and I didn't want the graphite to interfere too much. And again, I wanted to resist the urge to rely on an eraser too much with this, especially for delicate areas. Even if I'd have used the needed eraser, I might not have gained the right level of control with it because again, these colours are so subtle. So what I decided to do once the graphite had separated from the pigment was to skim it off with a pipette and put it in its own little pan. And yes, there are going to still be particles of graphite in there, but I do have a bit more clarity with that colour, which is what I wanted to do, especially for the border on here. One thing I have noticed using water-soluble graphite is you can get to a certain stage where the tone's not going to get any deeper. You have put on as much graphite as the paper is willing to accept, and I didn't want to lose that. I wanted that border to stand out, so I think extracting dye from it was actually quite a handy-dandy little hint there. Now, I am going to keep comparing them to Graphitint because that's the only other experience of this type of media that I've got. It does seem a bit bizarre actually that we didn't get Graphitint, seeing as we got the sketching pencils by doing. I mean, I'm not complaining. It just seems as well quite strange that these are in a tube, and I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I don't see why it would be any different, but it just felt a bit drier to paint with, and that's a really bizarre way to describe it, but they felt drier. It felt like the graphite just sank a lot quicker than the Derwent versions did, and you had to be quick where you were putting it. It didn't massively spread far, depending on how concentrated it was on the areas you were putting it. It didn't quite bloom as much as I expected it to. Is any of this kind of making sense? It's quite hard to articulate really how I found it different, but it did feel quite different to work with it, and that might be a brand thing, or it might just be how this medium is presented. I don't know. I'm going to have to research this further. To add just extra outlines and just make everywhere stand out a little bit more, I did go around the face and the frame again using both of the pencils at different times, and I think that just made it stand out. It is very bizarre though and maybe it's just the restricted colour palette as well, but it does remind me of an old Art Nouveau poster which has probably been in the sunlight for a long time, and maybe all the red hues have sort of desaturated out of it and you're just left with the blues and the yellows. I don't know, I like how aged it made this feel, and I think that's something good I can take away from this, because it is quite an interesting way of looking at how these materials behave and what you can achieve with them. And I do actually quite like the idea of creating something that looks aged and might have a bit of history and mystery about it. So I do think there's quite a lot of good things to take away from this box. Anyway, we are all done, the signature's on, the masking tape's coming off, and we are popping everything back in the box. I did really enjoy this box. I do wish we could have had a red colour in there, so we would have had the primaries, but it is not the end of the world. I really like this month's box. I enjoyed using the materials. I like what I created as well. And I hope you did too. I just want to say a massive thank you for watching, and thank you if you've made it this far, and to all you lovely people who have subscribed. And if you're not one of them, why not hit that button now and subscribe? Of course, if you've enjoyed this, hit that thumbs up button, and anything you want to jot in the comments, just chuck it down below and I'll have a look and get back to you. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video. Bye!